Welcome back to my channel. My name is Mitzi and I am a doctor working in the UK. As you can tell by the title of the video, I'm going to be talking about how I became a doctor. I graduated summer of 2019 and have been working as a doctor for the last year and a half. I'm going to be talking about this while I do some potting of my little cuttings. I was given these from my friend in December. It is now February. My journey to become a doctor wasn't the most conventional. If you imagine the medical school front door being the usual way people go in, I kind of went around the side door. And for a while this was something that I felt a bit kind of embarrassed about because I didn't get the A levels, and so I felt like, not that I was a fraud, but it just kind of, I don't know, I felt embarrassed by it. But speaking to more doctors and realising that actually there are loads of us who have managed to achieve what we have achieved, not necessarily using the most conventional route. So I hope that this will inspire you to not give up on whatever it is that you want to achieve and to just keep trying until you get there, and you will get there. I've sort of written out my story, I guess, and looking at it, there are so many points in time where it really, on paper, looks like I have failed. But on reflection, when I think back to that time, I never once thought that I had failed. I mean, sure, there were setbacks and diversions in my path, but I never once thought, oh well, you know, I failed, that's it. It was kind of like, ooh, what's next? What do I do next to get to where I want? And I think that's such an important mindset to have. Hopefully, my story will inspire you to go after whatever it is that you want to do, because you can. We all can. So this video has the potential to be quite long, so I will try and time mark the different parts of the video, and I'll just give you an overview of what I intend to cover. The first thing is that I'm going to do a very brief, I stress the word brief, overview of the application process to get into medicine, and just in terms of the usual path that people in the UK go by. But number two, I'm going to be talking about things that inspired me to choose a career in medicine and to study to become a doctor. Number three, I'm going to look at things that you need to know about applying, and again, this is very brief. This is talking about my journey rather than like how to apply to medicine. Number four, I'll be looking at my GCSEs and A levels and kind of what happened when I was at sixth form. Number five, I'll be talking about how I got onto my biomedical science degree. And number six, I'll be talking about the transfer scheme that I got on to go from biomed to medicine. And then I'll be talking about getting the transfer and medicine at university, and then a summary and some key take-home points. So I need to get a tea actually, one sec. Okay, pause it now if you need to get a drink. My makeup's a lot, but yeah, we're just gonna roll with it. So I have my peppermint tea. Have you got your drink? Cheers. So yeah, let's begin. So the brief overview of the application process. Usually you apply for university in your second year of sixth form. So you have high school in the UK from year 7 to year 11, and that's basically when you're 11 turning 12 up until you're 16. After that you have sixth form or college or apprenticeship. So if you choose to do A-levels, you have 2 years of A-levels, AS and A2. And so in AS you pick 4 subjects, and you can use that time to go to university open days and decide what it is that you want to do if you haven't decided already. So then by the time you're in A2, you have your grades from the first year. This was when I applied, by the way, so I don't know if things have changed, especially with the pandemic and everything. So you apply for your universities in A2, and you have the grades from your ASs as well as predicted grades. And especially for lots of courses, but particularly things like medicine, your predicted grades are so important, because if you don't have the predicted grades that you need, then you can't get onto the course. There are different types of courses for medicine, so you usually have undergraduate and graduate entry. When you are undergraduate, you don't need to have a previous degree because this can be your first degree, and it's usually 5 or 6 years. So for some universities you have to do a 6-year course because you do an intercalated Bachelor of Science degree, or sometimes a master's in some circumstances. There are some universities like St George's, the one I went to for example, where you can choose to do 5 or 6 years. So by default you do a 5-year course and then you can apply to do an extra year to do your intercalated Bachelor of Science degree. You have graduate entry programs, so these tend to be slightly shorter because you have a degree before. At St George's it was 4 years, but it can vary as well depending on university and what they include in their courses. So then what did I do? I went through a transfer scheme, so this meant that I did 3 years of biomedical science at St George's, graduated, and then went straight into the 3rd year of a 5-year medical course. Or it gets a bit confusing because it was technically the 2nd year of a 4-year graduate entry course, but they combine at that point in time. So I did 3 years of biomedical science and then 3 years of medicine to make a 6-year time at uni where I got 2 degrees. It's already getting really rambly. I wanted to say that although despite not getting my A-levels, I managed to still complete my medical degree in the same amount of time as the other people who are my peers that started university straight after school. It doesn't really matter about time, and if you take a bit of time to get into medical school at the beginning, that's fine, because later down the line there are lots of people that take breaks whilst they're in medicine. And so when you're a consultant, no one's going to ask you how old you were when you became a consultant. All that matters is that you're a consultant, or whatever specialist route that you want to go down. So taking your time, there's nothing wrong with that. And especially choosing something like medicine, where when you become a doctor, it changes your identity. You have certain requirements in society, and that's not a decision that you can take lightly. You have different moral responsibilities, and that's, as soon as you become a medical student. So for me, having those extra 3 years where I was an adult, able to have fun without that sort of deep moral obligation that the first day of medical school, they basically tell you that your life is going to change. There's nothing wrong with having a bit of time before you make that kind of commitment. What inspired me? So there are a couple things. I don't know whether you have heard of the film The Day After Tomorrow. This is by no means my favourite film at all, but I guess I didn't realise how much it actually shaped my life in terms of why I chose my career. So for those of you that don't know, The Day After Tomorrow is one of these sort of disaster movies. There's warnings about climate change, and an ice age hits New York City, Manhattan, and you watch people struggle to try to survive this natural disaster. Really cheery, I know. So why did this inspire me? Well, you had in the film, I don't know how accurate this is because I haven't seen it in years, but what I took home from it was that there were 2 groups of people. There were the leading characters who had the scientist who was specialising in climate change. You had his wife who was a doctor, and their son who knew about climate change and medicine because his parents, So, and then you had this other group of people who were not scientists. They didn't have this kind of background, and yeah, you probably kind of guessed it. The team who had the scientists, they made it to the end of the movie, whereas the other group of people were found frozen in the snow. So when I was younger, I was thinking, so if a natural disaster were to hit planet Earth, I would want to be in a team that has a doctor in it, or some kind of science base, but then I would also want to do this for myself. So that kind of led me to think, well, if I was a doctor, then I would always be in the team that had a doctor. I don't know, some kind of weird pre-teen, teenage logic. So that was one thing. I thought, if something were to happen, I want to have a use, I would want to be able to do something. Fast forward to 2020.
Coronavirus!
Yep. My other inspiration to why I wanted to become a doctor came from studying medicine through time in my GCSEs. I found it so inspiring to learn about all the different people that shaped and developed modern medicine as we know it today, and I thought, yeah, you know, I want to be part of this journey as well. I want to leave my stamp in time and contribute to the amazing thing that is medicine and being a doctor and saving lives and treating disease and discovering new things. That's kind of where my inspiration came from. The next part is focusing on the things that you need to know. As a young teen, was like, yes, I want to be a doctor. Did I know anything about the application process? Did I know anything about what you need to become a doctor? And did I know about what it actually meant to be a doctor? Not really. I was fortunate with the fact that one of my great friends from school, her dad was a doctor, and I remember I was around her house one time and in passing her mum asked me, I was probably maybe 14 or 15 at the time, if I knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. And so I was like, yeah, I want to be a doctor. And her eldest daughter had just got through the process of applying and getting into medical school, as well as her husband being a doctor. So she was very much like, okay, well, you know, you need to get some work experience. So when you're 17, we'll organise you some work experience at the hospital. You need to show that you've had a long-term commitment to medicine, to start volunteering in a care home, and all of these different things that I didn't know I needed to do. So I'm very grateful for my friend's family for all the support that they gave me on my journey to getting into medical school. And when you go to a state school, I didn't have any idea of what I really needed to do, and there's not the same kind of network and understanding that you have at private schools. And still the majority of medical students tend to come from private school. It's hard to get work experience in a hospital if you don't know someone who works there. So yeah, that's just one thing that I would like to branch out into the community and see whether there's any work that I can do in that area to make medicine more inclusive. Some of the students that I went to university to have created some great organisations, which I will link below, who are trying to make medicine more inclusive, give opportunities to underrepresented people in our society. And that work is great. I was offered from my state school was to go to something called Medlink, and again this was expensive. It was hundreds of pounds to stay in Nottingham University for 2 or 3 nights, and we had lectures from different doctors, people showing their different paths to get into medicine. And I think that's probably why, as I mentioned before, there were parts of my journey where I technically failed. I never really saw it as failure because I had all these speeches from these amazing people who got there in the end. So yeah, Medlink was expensive. We had to rally around the family to get enough money so that I could go. One second. When I was at Medlink, they had a fair where they had loads of different universities giving information about the medical schools. I remember seeing the stand for St George's University, and I guess one of the most striking things was how ethnically diverse it was, and how happy they all looked, and that was something that really stood out compared to the other schools. And being mixed race myself, I felt like I just felt a natural draw to that university and the energy that they gave off. So from that point of time, I kind of had this idea that I really wanted to go to St George's. The next thing that we will talk about are GCSEs, A-levels, and the sixth form shenanigans that I went through. So GCSEs, I did okay in I did well in GCSEs, but I didn't do well enough to get into all medical schools. And that's one thing you need to be aware of when applying for medical schools. Really look closely at the small print for the universities, because some of them will say that they only accept people who have 8 A stars at GCSE, and you may have a master's and 4 A's at A level, but if you had 7 GCSEs, then you could be immediately excluded from their application process. So just really check the small print. At GCSEs, I got 5 A stars, 6 A's and a B, and so that had excluded me from some universities like Birmingham, for example, who wanted 8 A stars. That was okay. I knew I still had enough to get into other medical schools. In terms of A-level, I actually found A-levels quite hard because, I don't know why I'm laughing, but throughout school I kind of was quite natural when it came to doing well. I didn't really have to work that hard. I mean, I was listening in classes, I did my homework on time, and I enjoyed school, but I never really developed the tools for studying and revising. And that really came through when it came to A-levels. When it came to ASs, I got all Bs in my ASs. And as I said before, you do 4 ASs and then you choose 3 to take onto A-levels. So for A-levels, I did biology, chemistry, history and philosophy and ethics. I knew I needed to do the 2 science ones, and when I looked at the breakdown of my history and my philosophy and ethics, I did very similar in both. So that didn't really help when it came to choosing which one to drop. So the other issue was getting my predicted grades, and now my biology and my history teachers, I'd had them throughout GCSEs and they knew that I worked hard and they were happy to predict me A's. But when it came to chemistry, there was a whole drama with my chemistry teacher anyway because he had been missing for most of the year. The head of chemistry, who didn't really know me very well, wouldn't predict me an A based on, I think she said it was something to do with the school's credit. If they predict people higher than they think they will achieve, then it makes the school look bad. So then I didn't have the predicted A that I needed for chemistry. And then one of my philosophy and ethics teachers also said that he didn't think that I would be able to get an A in that subject. So that meant that I couldn't apply for medicine. So I had 2 choices. I could just do my A-levels, wait a year essentially, and then apply for medicine, or I could swap sixth forms. And so that's what I did. I went to a sixth form that would help me with my application for medicine, and they predicted me the grades that I needed to have a chance of getting in and trying to apply. And I didn't get the A-levels that I needed anyway to get in. I didn't get any offers. So what happened was I applied to St George's through clearing, and I'd heard through the grapevine that St George's had this transfer scheme. So you could start by doing a biomedical degree and then transfer onto medicine. I didn't really know much about it at the time, but before I applied, I looked on their website, saw this whole transfer thing and just thought, yeah, why not? So I got into St George's Biomed, and the majority of the people on the course, there's probably about 200 people, the majority of the people chose to go there because of the transfer, and a lot of them also got through in clearing. The criteria to get the transfer meant that you had to get, I think it was, I mean, don't quote me, this was back in 2013, you had to get something like a first in your first year of biomed, so that you would automatically get offered an interview which takes place in the second year. If you didn't get a first, you still had the ability to make up your grade in the second year, but then you wouldn't find out until just before the interviews if you were going to be offered one. So I worked really hard my first semester and I managed to get a first, and that was great. Second semester I worked really hard again, but I kind of flopped the exam. It was an essay-based exam and we had to write 2 essays, and that was what the exam was based on. In one of my essays I got first, I did really well, and then in the other essay I failed. Like actually failed. I got 20%. And I remember I got the manuscript because I was thinking, how can I have failed so badly? It was a pharmacology paper and I'd completely mixed up these 2 different types of receptors, and the writing, the marking over the top was like, no, no, no. Yeah, so I flopped that. Even then I knew that I could still make up my grade the next year, so I worked even harder and I managed to bring my score up and get an interview. And so out of about 200 people, 70 people were offered the interview, and from the interview the place to 20 people. And I got the transfer. There are things that I haven't mentioned in terms of the application process. So I had done work experience when I was 17. I volunteered in a care home for about a year. I did some hospital work experience, and I volunteered for this holiday home in France for adults with mainly physical disabilities. you have to read the small print, and again for the transfer they said that the work experience you had to have done had to be within the last 2 years. So some of that work experience that I had done for my first application for medicine was now void. So I had to repeat my my hospital work experience, and I also joined different charities and societies while I was at university to get that extra, show that long-term commitment to a cause or an interest in medicine. So I got the transfer, and it was incredible because I'd managed to, again, not that it matters about the time, but I'd managed to make up the time that I had potentially lost, and I was kind of back on track to graduate at the same point in time as if I'd got my A-levels and got into medicine. In summary, I had the ambition to become a doctor. I had this goal that I was focused on and wanted to achieve. Didn't get my A-level results that I needed to go the most direct route. Despite that, I managed to graduate with a first-class degree, a BSc with honours from my Biomedical science course, and then I also graduated with an MBBS, my degree, so that I could practice medicine. Having that first degree enabled me to sort of grow a little bit, become an adult before I committed myself to a career in medicine, which I think is really important to do. It's not a decision to take lightly to become a doctor. It's something that does change your life, and it is a big commitment to make. As I mentioned before, with my A-levels I struggled with revising and studying, and that was something that I continued to develop throughout my university degrees, and then even now, having my exam at the start of the month, my revision styles are still developing and evolving, and that's just something that when you do a career like medicine and you're constantly having to study, it's something that will just continue to get better. So to finish the video, I would like to do some take-home points. So number 1 is never give up. If it's something that you really want, it will happen. Just give yourself time, the space and the resources that you need, and then just let it happen as it happens. Number 2, there's no such thing as failure, and as I mentioned before, there are very definitive parts of my story where it really does seem like I had failed. I failed to get my A-level results, I failed to get any offers of university, I failed in my first year of university and dropped my average. But never at one point in time did I feel like that was that and I had to choose a different path. It was just, okay, what do I do next? How do I get around this to get to where I want to be? Number 3, know your why. It's so important with whatever you choose to do, to know why you want this, and that will help you to stay motivated. It was quite a hard question for medical school interviews when they're like, why do you want to be a doctor? And you have to really tailor what experiences in your life led to you to decide that. Number 4, get to know what you don't know. So particularly when it comes to universities, go through their terms and conditions and make sure that you see what you actually need to be included in their decision-making process. It's so easy to miss something that says, oh, we need 8 A stars at GCSEs, and then before you've even been able to show the list of all your credentials, you've been chopped, because they need a filtering process, and if you don't meet that filter, then you will be cut, and you'll be cut before you've been able to shine. So just make sure that you empower yourself with the knowledge so that you know what you need to achieve. 5, surround yourself with the right people, especially if, for someone like me who went to a state school, I didn't have any family members that were in medicine. Generally speaking, for example, with doctors, we do want to help people, and if you approach someone, even if they can't directly help you themselves, they will definitely be able to direct you to where you can get help, where you can get that experience, and it's so important. Okay, so that was a very rambly video, but I hope, 1, it inspires you to just go for what it is that you want to do, have confidence in yourself and know that you will get there. As you will be aware, I applied for medicine quite a few years ago now, and so I'm sure that this is not the most up-to-date information. However, if you do have any questions, please drop them below and I will try and answer them as best as I can. If you enjoyed this video and you want more videos on this kind of topic, then also let me know below. If you have any specific questions or video ideas that you would like me to elaborate on, then again let me know. And of course, if you enjoyed it, thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down. And comments are always helpful for reasons why you didn't enjoy. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It would really help my channel grow. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
I've never met anyone who makes me feel the way I do. And it's so peculiar, but it just seems to work. And we fit perfectly, I can never ask for more. They say that hindsight is a wonderful thing.